Hello, everybody, and welcome to this, the latest edition in our Export to Japan series of podcasts. And for today's podcast, we're going to dive into the world of the financial services in Japan. And in particular, we're going to be looking more deeply at the world of asset management. And I have a very special guest that I'm going to be introducing in a moment, coming to us from Japan, who we're going to be talking to about this. But before I do that, I just need to ask you a little favor. We have a wonderful ongoing program of podcasts coming up. We're working on further podcasts in the series. We've got some exciting topics coming up. So I would urge you, please, to hit that subscribe button wherever it is on your screen. And also, please give us a thumbs up and a like if you enjoy this podcast and what we bring to you today. That would be so helpful for us, and we really appreciate you doing that. So on to today's podcast, I would like to introduce Mr. Takuma Tanaka, who is the Deputy Director of the Strategy Development Division of the Financial Services Agency in Japan. So Takuma, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for the introduction, Steve. I'm very honored to be able to actually be on the podcast. I'm excited, very excited today.
Good. Well, that's our pleasure. That's our pleasure. And I believe you did spend a little bit of time living here in the UK at some point. Is that right? Have you lived in the UK?
Oh, yes. Between 2018 and 2020, I lived in 1 year in London and another year in Oxford. That was absolutely wonderful.
Good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. And they're two great cities, that's for sure, that you lived in when you were here in the UK. You chose very well. So well done, you.
Too bad that, some of British accents disappeared from my English. It's like, my mixture of American, Japanese, English whatsoever.
Well, we're hearing and understanding you perfectly clearly, so don't worry about that at all. Your English is very good. So, and where do we find you today? Where are you joining us from? Which part of Japan are you in?
Right now I'm living. We are from Tokyo. Okay. We have a office in Nihonbashi, which is 1 block away from Tokyo Stock Exchange. And we are actually actively promoting our initiatives, what we call International Financial Center initiatives. I think, that's why we actually opened a new office in that location.
Got it. Yeah, and I know that location very well. It's a very nice part of Tokyo. So yeah, another great location for you. So very good, very good. All right, well, listen, I've got a number of questions I would like to put to you today and looking forward to hearing more from you about that. And to get the ball rolling, I'd like to kick off by just asking you fairly generally, could you tell us a little bit more about the current situation in Japan and the trends around the asset management business and the asset management sector in Japan?
Okay, thank you for the question. I assume that, not everyone is very familiar with the financial industry. So let me start some introductory stuff. So what does the asset management business do? So in general, there are 2 stages, I would say. First is, asset management companies raise funding from investors. And then secondly, leveraging the money collected from investors, asset managers make investment to generate returns. So based on this, regarding asset raising opportunities in Japan, let me share several stats. Like assets under management in Japan has been more than doubled for the last 10 years, from $2 trillion in 2011 to $5 trillion in 2020. For household financial assets in Japan has reached $18 trillion and half of this is in cash and bank deposits. This may show great potential for asset management businesses. If we look into institutional investors in Japan, the pattern of asset allocation has been changing right now. Investment in domestic bonds decreased, while investment in alternative investment increased. Take GPIF, Japan's Government Pension Investment Fund, for example. the GPIF has dramatically increased exposure to alternative investments from 10 years ago to nearly 9 billion US dollars in 2020. This is for the intro for asset raising opportunities. Regarding investment landscape in Japan, to start with stocks, many overseas residents invest in stocks listed in Japanese stock exchanges. Around 30% of the listed stocks are possessed by non-residents or non-Japanese. Moreover, Tokyo Stock Exchange restructured its market segment this month, this April 2022. Moving into the private equity and venture capital, their markets have been growing in Japan as well. For instance, an investment in Japanese startups has increased tenfold compared to 10 years ago. In addition, other asset classes like bonds, both government and corporate derivatives, real estate, infrastructure, etc., are also available here. Then you asked the trends. Climate change is the most eminent agenda across the globe, and Japan is no exception, of course. Japan's climate action targets include 46% reduction of greenhouse gas emission by 2030 from the level in 2013 and carbon neutrality by 2050. Financial institutions and capital markets are expected to play increasing roles through ESG investment or sustainable finance. So in that sense, Japan is aiming to make Japan a so-called green international financial center as a hub for the transaction of ESG-rated bonds. The size of the Japanese ESG market has been increased fivefold from 2016 to 2020. Having said so, Japan accounts for just 8% of the global share, meaning for us great potential for more business opportunities going forward. So, all in all, we will continue to promote efforts toward decarbonization as well.
That's wonderful. I mean, that's a pretty incredible overview you've painted there, and lots of detail that we could drill into, and certainly a lot of facts and data. And one thing I will do when we come towards the end of this discussion is talk about how our listeners can access more of that information. So we'll come on to that in a second. But that's certainly a great overview that you've painted there, and quite impressive to look at some of that data and some of those trends that are going on. I guess if we take the discussion forward a little bit more then, and we start to think about the overseas companies and the UK companies that may be looking at the Japanese market right now, you've painted a good picture of what the opportunities would be, but how about looking a little bit more about what some of the sort of challenges might be and some of the disadvantages might be, and some of the things that the overseas companies should be thinking about when they're looking at the Japanese market?
Thank you for the question. And as you said, I briefly explained about the potential and opportunities in the previous question. But this does not mean, everything is so easy in Japan. Japan is, of course, a foreign country to UK individuals and businesses. I would like to mention two things here today. And first, first point is that some overseas asset managers are better off than others. Then the question is, why? I'm a government employee, not a business expert, but I heard many asset managers say that strategy is critical. So to succeed in Japan, or maybe any market in the world, it is essential to market themselves to meet local needs by leveraging their strengths or comparative advantages. I want to echo this view. The second point is that there are disadvantages and barriers to entry. For instance, from what I heard, for instance, financial services agency or immigration authorities are slow. It takes forever to obtain licenses or visa, or tax rates are too high. or Japanese people do not speak English. I am doing my best, by the way.
Great job. You're doing a great job.
Which poses a challenge to, thank you, which poses a challenge to overseas investment professionals. Then to address these disadvantages in financial regulation, taxation, visa, and language whatsoever, the government of Japan formulated a government-wide policy package. I will touch upon the details later.
Great. I mean, yeah. So with those challenges you talk about, it makes sense what you're saying. And we know through all the work we do at Export to Japan, not just in your particular sector, but in all the business sectors that UK companies are looking at the Japanese market, these kind of challenges exist. I certainly want to come on to understanding a bit more about any help and support and initiatives that are going on with the Japanese government side. But this is a timely point for me to jump in and say, the whole objective of Export to Japan and what we're doing on this platform is to give support and assistance to UK companies coming in. So we have a wealth of resource on this particular platform that people can tap into to get help with some of these issues. And the other great resource as well, a fantastic resource, is to talk with the trade team at the British Embassy in Tokyo. So there's a dedicated trade team there, headed up by James Carter, that can give lots of support and lots of help as well. So also tap into that resource and talk to them, and they'll be willing to help and support too. But coming back to this discussion, and moving on quite nicely, that's a nice segue in. And maybe I'd like to ask you to tell us a little bit more about the Japanese government and what policies and what packages are available and what initiatives are going on there, please.
So as barriers of entry, I just mentioned financial regulation, taxation, visa, and language. And of course, financial regulation is within the jurisdiction of us, which is Financial Services Agency. But others like taxation and visa are not, within the jurisdiction. That's why we have taken a sort of government-wide approach. We formulated a government-wide policy package known as International Financial Center Initiatives. So let me talk about our reforms on financial regulation first. We opened the financial market entry office in January 2021, where I am right now here. This office serves as a one-stop English contact place for new asset managers who wish to open an office and be registered under the Japanese Regulation Financial Instruments and Exchange Act to operate a financial business in Japan. The entry office responds to various inquiries every day, both in Japanese and English. It can be general legal questions, or it can be specific questions like regulatory requirements based on your business model. Inquiries can be made by email, phone, video, or even in person at the office. We have actually visited today. You may also remain anonymous or rely on a legal agent at an early stage of consultation. Since its opening of the office 1 year ago, as of today, 8th of April 2022, 6 firms have completed the English application process and registered as an investment manager or investment advisory and agency business operator. Following the registration, the subsequent regulatory supervision and monitoring will also be conducted in English. So I think this could be an opportunity for English overseas asset managers, English managers. The registered firms include hedge funds, private equity funds, and venture capital funds, among the 6, coming from the US, Europe, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The registration process took 3 months or less, which I believe is comparable to other international financial centers. Then a good news is that the scope of this all-in-English registration track has been expanded last month in March 2022. In addition to the previous scope that includes investment manager and investment advisory and agency business operator, now it's expanded to overseas broker-dealers who need Type 1 license for selling foreign investment securities or investment trusts to professional investors in Japan. So, we are very much looking forward to accepting more English applications.
That's great. And what an amazing initiative and a great service being offered there. That's really good to hear about that. And congratulations for having 6 companies already that have applied and gone through the process. That's really good that you're building that momentum. You did mention there very briefly, you touched on tax and residential status. Could you tell us a little bit more about that situation as well, please?
Oh, yes. So on tax, we have made reforms on individual income tax, corporate income tax, and inheritance tax. I will elaborate briefly. For individual income tax purposes, the tax treatment of carried interest has been unclear under the Japanese tax law purposes. Previously, it could be taxed at 55%, the highest tax bracket in Japan's personal income tax. Now we have clarified through consultations with our tax authority, the carried interest will be taxed at the capital gain rate of 20%, not 55% at the highest, if the profit is distributed in a way that has no economic rationality. For corporate tax purposes, the performance-based compensation to directors was only deductible for listed companies. However, special provision was established last year to allow unlisted company to deduct its performance-based compensation. Now, a company needs to describe the calculation methods of the performance-based compensation in its annual business report and disclose the report on the JFSA website for actually allowing the a deduction of performance-based compensation. The last one is inheritance tax. So many people say that, never die in Japan because, until recently, all of your assets either located in Japan or not used to be subject to Japan's inheritance tax if you had lived in Japan for 10 years or longer. But this is no longer true. Based on the last year's tax reform, when a person with a valid Japanese working visa dies, no matter how long he or she has lived in Japan, his or her asset outside of Japan can be exempt from Japan's inheritance tax. On visa or residential status issues, basically you need to obtain residential status when you want to live and work in Japan. In this regard, overseas financial professionals are more likely to obtain the highly skilled foreign professional status to reside in our country. So under this, program, you are qualified if your total points exceed 70. Then your points are calculated based on your income, university degrees, job experience, and so on. I know it's a little bit complicated, so let's consider a hypothetical case for deepen your understanding. For instance, if your income exceeds 100K US dollar, you get 40 points. If you have a master's degree, you get 20 points. Then a new bonus category is added for an asset management business professional, which is 10 points. So in this case, 40 plus 20 plus 10, your points are now 70, meaning that you qualify. So I think it's simple and easy. There are several preferential treatments for highly skilled foreign professionals, like you can hire or bring helpers and nannies from outside of Japan with you, or your spouse can work full-time without obtaining a visa independently. And your visa application or your spouse's visa application is processed on a fast track approximately within 10 days.
Very good. That's very clear. Thank you for the explanation on that. And again, that's probably information that, excuse me, if anyone needs more further detail on that, they can obviously reach out to you or the other various channels that we've mentioned to get more detailed help. But that's a great summary. So thank you. I'd like to move on to the next topic, which is we've heard a little bit about the financial startup support program that may be available. Could I just ask you to explain a little bit more about that and the details of that, please?
Thank you for asking this. So starting a new business involves many steps other than registration, financial licensing registration, such as incorporation of a company, recruitment of staff, and a bank account opening, to name a few. Then these are in many cases time consuming and require communication in Japanese perhaps. Then these are not centralized either. So you need to visit each service provider one by one. This is why we launched the financial startup support program in partnership with our private subcontractor Trico Japan. The program offers one-stop access to a broad set of English support and consultation services for newly entering overseas asset managers. What's the program? The program offers the reimbursement of costs at the end, in addition to consultation services. The maximum amount of reimbursement is set at 20 million yen per company, or approximately, I think, 180K in US dollars. I hope this program would help encourage the entry of overseas asset managers into the Japanese market. So please apply before our budget is used up.
Okay, wonderful. I mean, again, what a great initiative for companies and a great support program. There's so much valuable information coming out here. So yes, let's urge people to apply quickly and become part of that. So that links me in quite nicely to my final question. We've covered a lot of detail. You've shared a lot of information, very valuable information for us. And I hope we've whet the appetite of many international companies as they're looking at the Japanese market. Where, if people are, if we've provoked their interest and they want to get further information, where can they go? Where do they go from here to get further information?
Again, thank you for the great question, Steve. If you seek more information on a broad policy package, we have prepared 3 channels. The first one is access our International Financial Center website. So just Google it. It posts a wide variety of useful information beyond what I have covered today. And the second, follow our new LinkedIn account, which we opened this January. It posts a new article on our latest developments every week. And please help spread our words globally. Thank you. And last one, thirdly, contact our financial market entry office. As I said, it could be via email, phone, video, or in person at the office.
Great, that's wonderful. And we will certainly put all links and details, up on our page as well, so that people can navigate through for those various different options. And great to see, I've been following your LinkedIn account, and it's great to see that. And it's a great initiative, and it's good to see, you using resources like LinkedIn as well, because, over here in the UK and in the rest of the world, those kind of platforms are great communication tools. So really good to see. Okay. And I would just, at this point, I would just remind people once again, feel free to reach out and talk to the trade team at the British Embassy in Tokyo and the consulate in Osaka. And of course, have a look at the Export to Japan platform too. There's a lot more resource on there as well. So multiple points of help where you can go in and get further information as you start to venture into the Japanese market. Just as we come to a conclusion, just a reminder again, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast. I think we've brought you a lot of very valuable information. Thank you so much to Takuma-san for sharing all that data with us. If you've enjoyed it, as I say, please hit the subscribe button and please give us a thumbs up. That helps with our Google rankings and search engine rankings and things like that. So please do that as a small favor in return for this content. And thank you all for listening in at home. I think and hope that you found that really, really valuable and insightful, and it's encouraged you to think more about the Japanese market. And you've got your various routes now where you can reach in to talk to Takuma-san and his colleagues to get more information. And then finally, it just leaves me to thank you, Takuma-san, so much for joining us today and sharing this great information. I really appreciate the work you've put into preparing for this, and you've very kindly painted such an interesting insight into your world in Japan of asset management, and giving us lots of information, lots of data, and whet our appetite for how people can get more further information to enter this exciting market. So thank you so much for joining us from Tokyo today.
Likewise, thank you very much for inviting me. As I said in the intro, UK is my second home, so I'm very looking forward to accepting applications from the UK. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, that's a lovely point to leave it. And thank you so much. So thanks everybody for listening in. Hope you've enjoyed the podcast, and we will be back again very soon with the next edition. So thank you so much. Thank you, Takuma-san, for your help. Appreciate it.